Details on today's meeting. Sarah, a very good afternoon to you. Do tell us what transpired at today's meeting today.
Well, today's meeting, there were several meetings. The one that we attended was between retired President Mbeki and acting cabinet secretary in charge of internal security, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, and also one with the United Nations. After that, President Mbeki also met women leaders. He was also scheduled to meet the Independent Elections and Boundaries Commission, and also once again meet church leaders. Now, in the meetings, the retired president, who is heading the African Union Elections Observer Mission, is seeking to understand the level of preparedness for the country and whether the country will actually prepare to hold a free, fair, and credible election, and also whether Kenyans can be secure and whether the country can be secure, whether business can continue as usual during the elections. Because a lot of observer missions that have come before the African Union have warned that there are high tensions in the country, that the election is so close that there are fears that there might be fighting if the results are contested.
But Sarah, what are some of those security concerns that are particularly worrying for the AU when it comes to these elections? I mean, any particular events that you can name that have raised this concern?
Yes, we spoke to Human Rights Watch, and they have said that in areas that have traditionally been hotspots for violence during elections, people have already started moving. There have been leaflets that have been thrown around warning certain communities that if they support their preferred candidates, because elections in Kenya is very ethnically based, and so you can almost tell who somebody will vote for just by knowing their tribe. And so there are already areas where people are being told, because you belong to this tribe, then you need to move out. And so those are causing fears that there may be fighting. Also because the primaries that were concluded in April were also very hotly contested, very controversial, both for the ruling coalition, the Jubilee Party of President Kenyatta, and for NASA, the coalition led by the opposition. So there are those fears that because the election is so heavily contested, that there may be fighting, and especially in areas that have been traditionally areas that people fight. Also, there's been a lot of political rhetoric from both sides. Take, for example, the opposition telling its supporters that it has 10 million, it knows that it can get 10 million supporters, and that is heightening tension because people are saying, what if you don't get the 10 million voters? What happens? Also, opinion polls have put President Kenyatta and his opponent, Raila Odinga, very close. And so that is making people think whatever way the elections go, then the country might slip into post-election violence.
And so, I mean, staying with that, with the campaign news, I mean, do tell us briefly about the contenders. Who are the Kenyans touting to be their next leadership, and how have the campaigns fared so far?
Well, the campaigns have been largely peaceful. There are areas, of course, where there has been booing and heckling of the two main candidates, that's Uhuru Kenyatta and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. However, unlike other instances where there's been a lot of, pre-election violence, this time it's been really quiet, probably because the primaries showed that Kenyans are now more enlightened, more educated, and they were able to throw out a lot of incumbents, the members of parliament. And going with that, a lot of people are thinking even the presidential election could go either way. In fact, a few days ago, we spoke to a human rights activist and a political analyst called Maina Kiai, who was saying the reason it is a very high-stakes election is because former Prime Minister Raila Odinga is making his last attempt at the presidency, while President Kenyatta is facing stiff competition from a united opposition. He is seeking his second and final term. So that makes the election not just interesting, but also very competitive.
All right. And Sarah, a very quick one just before I let you go. Are we going to see more heightened security or soldiers or the army deployed to those election areas come election day on the 8th? And what assurance has Kenya then given to allay those fears of any pre- and post-election violence, whatever the outcome?
You heard there from Acting Minister Dr. Fred Matiang'i. He's talking about being the country having prepared itself. Today he was meeting top security officers from all the 47 counties in the country, and they will be talking about deploying. Usually Kenya will not deploy the military, but they have bought a lot of equipment to be able to deploy across the country, and also along the border with Somalia, where there are fears that Al-Shabaab may infiltrate the country during that time of the election.
Sarah, thank you so much for that update. That is Sarah Kimani on the line to us from Nairobi, Kenya, with an update on the upcoming polls on the 8th of next month in Kenya.